There's somebody walking behind you, Ginny.
That's a fixed picture.
Your head's hiding, Mark.
Okay, you should be all set, Ginny.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. My name is Virginia Harger. I'm Chair of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission. Today is Wednesday, March 24th, and the special meeting of the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission is hereby called to order at 6:05 p.m. This meeting is being conducted entirely by Zoom, and the protocol for this evening's meeting was previously reviewed by Corporation Counsel, who indicated to me that it is compliant with the executive orders issued by the governor and fair for those attending in person or watching from a remote location. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And oops. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Oh, camera. All right. All right, I'll start off with a roll call, and please verbally indicate you're present when your name is called. Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Commissioner Parkins?
Present.
Commissioner Radomski? Commissioner Motto? Here. Commissioner Ticky?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Laskos?
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Usel?
Present.
Myself, Mr. Rossetti?
Present.
Mr. O'Neill? Is Mr. O'Neill participating, Mr. Rossetti?
He should be. I don't see him on right now, but
Okay.
I'll let you
Mr. Nappy?
Here.
Mr. Panico?
Here.
And Ms. Vernassos?
Here.
Very good. I'll try again, Commissioner Radomski? And Mr. O'Neill?
If you could hang on 1 second, I think Commissioner Radomski just hopped on.
He's muted.
No,
Yes, muted, yeah.
I asked him to unmute. so-
Okay, there he is. Commissioner Radomski, are you with us?
I'm trying, yes.
Okay,
All right, he's got it now. Oh,
yeah. Alex, okay. Commissioner Radomski, you're muting and unmuting, so now you're okay, but are you going to be starting a video?
I'm lucky I got this far.
Okay. And Mr. O'Neill, are you with us?
He is not right now.
Okay. And for the record, Commissioner Radomski indicated to me he would not be available after 7 p.m. So Commissioner Laskos, you'll be seated upon Commissioner Radomski's departure.
Okay.
Thank you. A couple of points before we continue. This is our 31st meeting being done via live streaming process. Mr. Rossetti is the Zoom meeting host. Commissioners will be able to make comments throughout the meeting, but I ask that you please identify yourself and wait to be recognized by the chair before speaking to make sure we're not all speaking over each other and to make sure our recording secretary is clear as to who is speaking. So we'll begin with agenda item 4, application 20-21 Willinger and Vusi for Emmanuel Motino at 6 Todd Road, Assessors Map 77, Lot 25, for a planned development district on 1.22 acres for a 10,170 square foot retail development. For the record, I'll note that the application was accepted for review on October 28th, 2020. We opened the public hearing on January 20th, 2021. We heard details about the proposal from the applicant's attorney and engineer. Commissioners Parkins and Radomski brought up a proposal separately for sidewalks in 2 specific areas on Platt and Todd Road. And Mr. Panico gave his opinion on a Todd Road sidewalk and also suggested a vehicle barrier in the parking area. The commission continued the public hearing until February 24th, when it was closed there's been several documents on the city's website for a couple of months now. Statement of use, full set of plans, building elevations, photo of the proposed retaining wall, marketing, office, and traffic studies. It was the consensus of the commission at our last meeting to direct staff to prepare a favorable resolution. Yeah, that was the meeting on March 9th, and we have a resolution to read into the record. Mr. Panico, would you like to do the honors? But before we do, does anybody have any questions? Okay. So, Mr. Panico, do you want to read the resolution?
Sure. This is regarding application 2021, the petition of attorney Charles Willinger on behalf of Manuel Motinko for a proposed plan development district for a multi-tenant retail development at 6 Todd Road, corner of Platt Road, currently zoned Office Park District, for approval of initial development concept plans and adoption of a PDD.
Can I just interrupt for a minute and just make sure commissioners know this was as part of the meeting materials on the city's website, if you had not already printed it out.
Correct.
What
By
was-
way of background, the petitioner, Manuel Motinko, proposes to construct a retail development consisting of a single building of 10,170 square feet, 1 story in height, on a site of 1.17 acres at the corner of Todd Road and Platt Road, currently zoned Office Park District. The site was previously developed with a sizable building and supportive parking, covering about 90% of the site with impervious surface. The building was occupied over the years by a variety of uses, including automotive sales, industrial uses, and a fitness center. The prior development was served by a driveway access from both roads and had full public utility service. The parcel has approximately 171 feet of frontage on Platt Road and 301 feet on Todd Road. It is rectangular in shape and slopes moderately down to Todd Road. The site is abutted on the south by an automotive tire sales and service facility and on the east by a manufacturing facility. The opposite side of Todd Road is a car parking lot on land leased from the state of Connecticut, while across Platt Road is a full-service car wash facility. A similar PDD on this parcel was considered in 2018 and failed to receive approval on a 3-3 tie vote. The subject application is accompanied by detailed development concept plans entitled Proposed Site Development Plans for Property Located at 6 Todd Road, Shelton, Connecticut, prepared for Manuel Motinko, July 2020, revised February 9th, 2021, prepared by Pereira Engineering and Land Surveyors, and including architectural plans entitled M&M Retail Center, 6 Todd Road, Shelton, Connecticut, prepared by Geddes Associates, Inc., architects. Also provided were a traffic impact study prepared by KWH Enterprise, LLC, dated September 2019. Drainage calculations by Pereira Engineering, LLC, dated July 21st, 2020, supplemented further by information on February the 9th of 2021, and a market feasibility for office building prepared by Cushman and Wakefield of Connecticut, Inc., dated April 1st, 2020. The application was accepted for review by the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission, and a duly noticed public hearing on the proposal was convened on November 18, 2020, which hearing was continued to January 20th, 2021, and closed on February 24th, 2021. Although no public comments were expressed at the hearing, there was considerable discussion and questioning by individual commission members concerning the type of retail proposed, the basis for determining anticipated traffic and parking needs, the ability of abutting and area streets to accommodate traffic generated, the impact of this decision on future planning for the area, and the ability of the market to support the proposal. The commissioners also expressed the need to consider traffic impacts on Bridgeport Avenue and the changing character of the immediate area over the past decade. The differences in traffic impacts between commercial and industrial development versus retail use, and whether office development would be preferable for better jobs and lower traffic generation. The market study submitted was to essentially demonstrate that office development of the site was not financially feasible, whereas retail commercial development is shown to be totally feasible. The commission has completed its extensive and detailed review of the proposal, and being thoroughly familiar with the general area and the site in particular, notes the following findings. Number one, a variety of commission concerns were expressed. It was noted that the type of retail was not indicated and that there was no other marketing information submitted by the applicant except for demonstrating that office development was not financially feasible on the subject site as opposed to retail development. With the existence of other vacancies in the city, some marketing information might have been helpful to justify a need for additional retail space and the type of prospective tenants they might expect to attract. However, the commission notes that in an extensive area of retail stores, such as that along Bridgeport Avenue, it's not unusual to find a number of vacancies at any particular time. As to occupants, it would be unusual for the commission to be aware of specific tenants that intend to occupy the retail stores. With respect to marketing, some commissioners felt that the commission's decision should not be predicated on the applicant's potential for success. It was noted that as a planning commission, they have a responsibility to determine whether retail use is appropriate at this location, and since it is a zone change, can the adjacent road support the anticipated development traffic. Finding number two, a traffic impact study was submitted, including actual counts of existing traffic, as well as an analysis of area roadway operations and the levels of service at proposed driveways and nearby intersections. The traffic study concluded that the subject project will produce negligible traffic impact on the adjacent roadways and intersections. All intersections and traffic approaches will operate at acceptable levels of service after the development is built, per the traffic study. Number three, the commissioners expressed some concerns about the growing traffic volumes on Bridgeport Avenue, as well as the vehicular congestion that occurs at times on Platte Road as a result of the backup from the Bridgeport Avenue signalized intersection. The commission noted that if such congestion at the site driveway occurs on occasion, the second driveway out to Todd Road will allow site traffic the option of turning left down Todd Road. Finding number four, public street sidewalks were discussed, noting the potential pedestrian activity that might occur. But it was also noted that there are no sidewalks in the immediate vicinity. At minimum, a sidewalk should be provided on the Platte Road frontage at this time. In addition, the applicant has confirmed that at such time as connecting sidewalks are proposed along Todd Road, the applicant will cooperate with and at their cost install a concrete sidewalk along the Todd Road frontage. Staff noted the possible need for guardrail along the easterly property line due to the proposed regrading and the need to protect the parking area on the adjacent property. Number five, at the continued public hearing on February 24 of 21, the applicant provided additional information confirming the retaining wall materials and fencing treatment, as well as supplementary drainage calculations and a revised set of initial development concept plans dated February 9, 2021, addressing some of the concerns noted above that were raised earlier in the earlier hearings. The applicant also confirmed at that time that no drive-through service window is proposed. The on-site circulation plan is identical to that previously approved by the fire marshal as part of the earlier application. An updated approval from the fire marshal should be obtained prior to the submission of final detailed development plans. The city engineer has reviewed the basic engineering provisions and provided comments to the applicant, who has addressed those concerns or will address them upon submission of final site development plans for commission approval. The commission has received verbal satisfaction from the city engineer. Written confirmation has also been provided. The Inland Wetlands Administrator has confirmed that the approved permit previously granted is still in effect and nothing further is required at this time. Reconfirmation of the approval of the Water Pollution Control Authority, WPCA, will be required prior to the approval of final site development plans by the commission. The staff noted that the dumpster enclosure detail indicates a fence style enclosure. Commission practice has been to provide masonry enclosure walls consistent with the proposed building construction. In view of the proposed masonry retaining wall that is directly behind the dumpster wall, the area may require further examination and modification. To understand that, a larger scale detail of the area a larger detail of the area may be, and the proposed solution should be provided for staff and/or commission review and approval. The architectural elevation of the rear building wall appears to be a form of block masonry, unlike the predominantly brick finish on the other three walls. This wall appears to be highly visible both from the adjacent property and to traffic that's proceeding westerly on Platte Road. This will need to be resolved with commission involvement during the preparation of plans for final approval, including the proposed exterior materials and finishes. Samples at that time may be requested by the commission, and although a landscaping plan has been provided as part of the final site development, as part of the final site development plans, as part of the final site development plan review of it, it may require further improvement and/or modification of plant materials selected, including possible modification of the proposed plant species and size, addition of minimum survival period, and a note to the effect that the commission may require additional supplemental plantings if deemed necessary. Number 6, the commission noted that the existing site currently has no stormwater management. Water runoff from the site was untreated and simply floated to Todd Road and into the city's drainage system. The proposed stormwater management system is acceptable to the city engineer and completely addresses this condition. It consists of a system of on-site catch basins and drainage pipes with runoff treated prior to discharge into the existing system on Todd Road, and will result in a minor reduction in post-development runoff from the site than what currently exists. All necessary utility services are available to the site, and all utility services will be located underground. Number 7, the proposed statement of uses and standards will need modification and revision to assure proper signage controls and avoid any potentially undesirable uses or occupancies. On the basis of the above, staff has prepared the following resolution for the commission's consideration and action. Resolution, whereas the applicant has submitted a complete petition for the establishment of a retail development under the provisions of the PDD regulations on a 1.17 acre site located at the corner of Todd Road and Platte Road, which site is currently zoned Office Park District. Whereas the commission held a duly noticed public hearing on November 18, 2020, continued to January 20, 2021, and closed on February 24, 2021 to consider said application. And whereas the commission has whereas the applicant has submitted detailed development concept plans, including other supporting reports and related material in order to provide the commission with the details and information needed to render an informed decision. And whereas the commission is familiar with the subject site and the applicable zoning regulations, and has reviewed and discussed the proposal in detail. And subject to the comments set forth above, the commission notes the following. 1, all necessary referrals have been made and the concerns addressed. Any further comments of the city engineer will be addressed as part of final detailed site plan review. Confirmation of previous approvals of the Fire Marshal, Inland Wetlands Commission, WPCA staff, WPCA, and applicable others will also be provided. Any further modifications needed to address any remaining concerns will be incorporated on final plans prior to approval of same. 2, the site historically accommodated a variety of commercial uses and is currently an aesthetic eyesore. The former building on the site was demolished some time ago following a fire, leaving the floor slab and paved parking areas. The site is currently vacant. All necessary supporting utilities are available in the abutting streets. And 3, the applicant provided a traffic impact study, including traffic counts at the site, driveway connections, and area roads, including levels of service of impacted intersections. The report concluded that the proposal would generate negligible impacts and result in acceptable levels of service on the affected intersections. 4, approval of the subject detailed development concept plan must be conditioned upon addressing all concerns identified above and incorporated on the final site development plans, with specific reference to providing a concrete sidewalk on Platt Street, including a note committing the developer to install a future concrete sidewalk on Todd Road when a connecting sidewalk is available, as well as retaining wall treatment details, lighting plan, landscaping, and similar concerns to the satisfaction of the commission and its staff. 5, the statement of uses and standards must be modified relative to clarification of uses and controls with special attention to permitted uses and signage provisions. 6, the proposed PDD encompasses an area of greater than 60,000 square feet and is consistent with overall area land use planning and development, the adopted plan of conservation and development, as well as the Route 8 corridor plan and the comprehensive plan of zoning for the city. Although the area has been planned and previously zoned for office park development, economic feasibility precludes reasonable office park uses. Retail commercial development has different economic parameters and characteristics and is represented to be accommodated by the street circulation system in the area without adversely impacting traffic operations on area streets. Existing and proposed utility services are adequate for the proposed development, and all proposed on-site utility lines will be underground. Therefore, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission, in accordance with the provisions of Section 34, hereby takes the following actions. A, to approve the proposed initial development concept plans subject to conditions noted above. And B, on the basis of said conditional plan approval, to adopt the proposed change of zone of the subject site from Office Park OPD District to Plan Development District number 100 to become effective on Friday, April the 2nd, 2021 at 8 a.m. That's it.
So that we can have a discussion, is there any commissioner that would like to move this particular motion?
I'll move.
Is that Commissioner Kelly?
Yes, it is.
Okay, is there a second?
Commissioner
second.
Perkins, a second.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Perkins, okay. All right, any discussion on this particular motion?
Chairwoman,
Go ahead, Commissioner Perkins.
2 points. One is a point of clarification. When Tony was reading the resolution, under number 4, he said approval of the detailed development concept plan. And I'm sure he meant to say initial as it is written. So just a point of clarification on
sorry.
that. I know from reading these, I didn't want to interrupt you while you were on your flow.
Yeah,
My
sometimes
only
it's
other
within your mind.
Exactly. My only other point of concern is under the background on page 1. the 11th down of the first paragraph, it says the opposite side of Todd Road is a car parking lot on land leased from the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, after
Um,
reading
that-
that, I thought maybe it needed clarification.
Yeah, because it almost infers that the property it's being leased by these developers, and it's not, it's leased by a private car dealership. So maybe
Mhm.
just a little bit of more connotation around that it's
Let's see.
privately leased dealership car parking lot or something like
Mhm.
that.
Outside of Todd Road is a car parking lot
Maybe a privately leased.
on land leased from the state of Connecticut
I'll
by,
put this, but not related to this project.
Correct. Well, no, it doesn't have to say that. It just needs to explain what it is.
I was gonna put leased by a nearby automotive dealership.
Yeah,
That's
just
fine.
to indicate that it's not the current owner. Otherwise, I have no further comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Perkins, could you just tell me what page that was? It was,
Page 1,
oh, there, no, I'm sorry. It was that number 4. I just found it where it's not final, it's initial. Yep,
yeah, page 6.
yep, got it. Okay. One of the things that is positive about this particular proposal is that the stormwater management will be addressed and improved. And one of the things that staff is going to have to monitor for us is what we, Mr. Panico indicated on page 4, that propose building materials and finishes and would have to be submitted, and the plantings, the plant species, size, and all that information would also be required by the commission. Does anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, Commissioner Wodomski.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I didn't like this project 2 years ago when it came up, 2018, 3 years maybe. I don't trust the traffic plan. We all know that the traffic plans that have been submitted in the past have been less than accurate in terms of the amount of traffic that these places are producing, the amount of traffic on Bridgeport Avenue. The idea that if the Todd Road is jammed up, they can go down the access road, it doesn't solve an issue. It just moves the traffic somewhere else to a different location away from their project. I don't like giving up the OPD for PDD. I don't think we need more commercial in this area. We have a ton of retail stuff that has been proposed that hasn't been built yet. We have, well, let me phrase that, that's been approved and hasn't been built yet, all along the corridor. We have other projects that are coming before us that are going to consist of the same stuff. And we just had a gentleman a couple of weeks ago, last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago, when we had our last meeting, that said that office and retail is a kind of a dying breed, and that's why he was looking to the brick and mortar portions of it, and that's why he was looking to put in condos along South Constitution Boulevard. I think before we do any more improvement of retail space, we really need to look at where the future is going to go and take some thoughtful process into what we have before we just build it and hope they will come. Like I said, I just don't trust the traffic. I think it's going to be a disaster. I hope it's not a tragedy in the making.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other comments?
It's Commissioner Ticky.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I do recall this from several years ago and also didn't support it, though. In this latest measure, I was pleased to see, and it's captured in page 3, that there's no drive-through. So I think we've taken some measures to mitigate some traffic issues. I am interested to see what retail comes in. That is always of interest to me. But I hope that it's quality storefronts that add value. We've talking about in this commission under COVID and even before the decline of retail spaces. But if there is a market for it, for this, and it's not a drive-through, as the developer said it wouldn't be, it might find a good home to be a bit set back from Bridgeport Ave with this development. And I do think this is improved from the plan that we saw in 2018.
Mhm. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing that there's no further offerings of any comments from the commission, I'll be calling for a vote. I do want to point out, and Commissioner Wodomski, you were in attendance at the opening of the public hearing on January 20th, but we have no record of you attending on February 24th. And on, do you feel that you're acquainted enough with this particular project to vote on it?
Yeah, I caught myself up on the plans when I looked at them.
You caught yourself up. All right, so you're going on record as being qualified to vote on this particular proposal.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so just a reminder that as it's pointed out in the resolution, under 8-3B of the Connecticut General Statutes, we need 4 affirmative votes to adopt a zone change. Okay, so if there's no further discussion on a roll call vote, Commissioner Kelly,
Aye.
Commissioner Parkins, you're
You're muted.
Sorry, aye.
Commissioner Motto,
Aye.
Commissioner Tiki,
Aye.
Commissioner Wodomski,
No.
you're an A. Okay, and the chair votes aye. So the motion to adopt has passed by a vote of 5-1. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, next on the agenda is application 20-12, Good Guys Development LLC at Petromont Lane, Assessors Map 66, Lot 24 for a planned development district in an R3 zone on 2.1 acres for initial development plan approval of an apartment building with 10% affordable housing units and on-site parking. We had a public hearing for this, which opened on July 29th, 2020. Heard from the applicant and the applicant's experts, 3 members of the public. We continue the public hearing on August 26th. There was discussion about making Petromont a one-way street from Quorum Road. Later on, that was discarded. On September 16th, there were further reports that were heard and the public hearing was closed. On October 28th, there was a consensus from the commission for staff to continue discussions with the applicant regarding the commission's concerns about the proposal, specifically Petromont Lane. On February 9th, the commission requested that the applicant supply staff with more detailed information about the reduction in units. And on the city's website, an updated site plan, 3-floor layouts and elevations for all sides of the building are posted. And Mr. Rossetti noted at the February 9th meeting that the city has agreed to take on some responsibility to help renovate the connection with Quorum Road, Constitution Boulevard, and Petromont Lane. At the March 9th meeting, a discussion was held among members of the commission, and the commission directed staff to prepare a favorable resolution.
Carter,
Yes, go ahead.
as Commissioner Wodomski, I'm going to step aside on this because I'll be honest with you, I haven't really followed up on much of it. I just have one comment to make, that before we agree to start upgrading intersections for some builders and developers, we should really pay attention to see if, so we don't set a precedent that we're doing this for all of them.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Wodomski. Okay, so Mr. Panico, do you
Yes,
want to read this particular resolution?
sure.
And I think
It's
Mr. Rossetti
a
will,
lengthy one because it is a complex project, mainly because of some of the supporting situations that have to be addressed and further revisions that are needed. But I think basically the project has been developed to the point that the commission feels comfortable to taking an action in order to allow further study and information to be passed between commission and applicant. Until we get the public hearing matter out of the way, that avenue is not available to you. And yet you need to have more input. So I think the commission is wise in moving forward and taking an action with conditions that protect it, recognizing that much more design review needs to be done to finalize what that product is going to look like.
Mhm.
With that as background, then what we
Can I
have
just,
is
I'm
application
sorry,
number.
can I just briefly interrupt, Chairwoman? I would
Yeah.
suggest, since Commissioner Wodomski has stepped aside, that you appoint Peter Laskos.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. Commissioner Laskos, you're being seated for this particular agenda item. And
Understood.
forward until, it may take us till 7 o'clock when Commissioner Wodomski indicated he would have to leave, but I'll check at that time. So thank you, Commissioner Parkins. Go ahead, Mr. Panico.
Thank you. Application 20-12 is the petition of Good Guys Development LLC for initial development concept plan approval and adoption of a plan development district for a multifamily residential building at 0 Petromont Lane, currently zoned residence R3 district. The petitioner proposes to establish a plan development district on a 2.12 acre site with frontage of 197.93 feet on the northerly side of Petromont Lane, approximately midway between Quorum Avenue and River Road, which is also Connecticut Route 110. The site extends to a depth of approximately 345.80 feet from Petromont Lane and is situated in a transitional use area, abutting the rear of retail commercial development on River Road to the east, which is zoned commercial CA2 district, and it's across the street from Petromont Lane, which has a mixed commercial development zone CB2 district. Westerly at the corner of Quorum Avenue is a vacant lot adjacent to the single-family house, while the adjacent land to the north is vacant and zone residence R3 district in that area abutting the subject site, with its frontage on River Road, zone commercial CA2 district. The site is characterized by variable topography that rises from an elevation of between 80 and 90 along Petromont Lane frontage to elevation 110 to 120 along the rear property line of the site. There are no inland wetland regulated areas on the site, and the site is vacant with existing natural vegetation. Petromont Lane is a public road with a very narrow paved roadway, travelway, and a substandard right-of-way width. And traffic flow is currently limited to one-way eastbound toward River Road. I've had some last-minute discussions, and the feeling was it may not be officially limited to one way, but that was always my recollection. Do the commissioners have anything to share on that?
I don't recall any signage that at either end that indicate an arrow pointing to River Road as to, or do not enter. It is, while it's a very narrow, it is a.
My recollection a few years back when we approved the project for Santos up at the corner there, that he had concerns about being able to have two-way traffic flow into his backyard. And the commission at that time was debating a one-way condition and preferring it to be westbound. But the chairman of the commission at that time had very strong feelings to the opposite. So I thought it was simply left as one way, with the exception of a portion of the road in front of alongside the Santos property, which was widened by Santos to be able to accommodate two-way traffic for that one portion. But I could be wrong. It could not be officially one way.
It's currently two-way. People travel on it in both directions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whether it should be or not, I don't know, but that's what's happening.
All right, then with the commission's concurrence, I'll correct that language so it says something to that effect. Uh, Okay, so that currently limited to one way. I'm going to change that.
Traffic flow
I'm going
currently
to say
is
something to
two-way.
the effect that traffic appears to be using the street in both directions despite its narrow condition.
Mhm.
Okay. It will, in any event, it will require reconstruction and improvement to accommodate any significant additional traffic. Utilities are available in Petromont Lane, including stormwater catch basins and lines, a 12-inch water main, a 2-inch sanitary sewer force main, and overhead electric and telephone lines. Any development of the site will necessitate excavation and regrading, including, I indicated some amount of rock removal, but I'm not certain whether that's true or not. I don't have any recollection of specific discussion about whether they anticipated rock or not, but I thought I would cover myself to anticipate that possibility,
Maybe just insert the word possibly, including some,
including.
possibly including some amount.
Okay, some possible amount of. That will obviously be firmed up between the current status and the preparation of detailed plans.
Mhm.
The property is currently owned by the petitioner. The development, as initially submitted, consisted of 56 studio and 1-bedroom residential rental dwelling units, 4 of which were proposed to be reserved as, quote, workforce units in a single building. To adapt to the grades of the site, the building would have 3 stories on the easterly facade. That's the facade towards River Road.
Mhm.
4 stories on the westerly side, that is the area facing, the side facing Coram Avenue, as well as 4 stories facing Petromont Lane. The 56 apartments that were envisioned consisted of 19 studio units, 37 1-bedroom units, and of those 37, some 15 of them were to have an office / den. They call it out as an office. On-site parking of that plan showed 112 cars, some of which were proposed to be deferred until needed. Access to the site was to be provided by 2 driveways connecting to Petromont Lane and circling around the side and rear of the building. In view of site topography, site grading is necessary, including the use of retaining walls along the northerly and easterly property lines to minimize the amount of excavation and possible rock removal. Okay, the proposed building is positioned approximately at the center of the site with generous setbacks from all property and street lines, and it will be built into the slope. Parking is distributed at the sides and to the rear of the building, with no parking between the building and the street. The initial development concept plans were submitted for the initial development concept plan submitted for the proposal, accompanied by a statement of uses and standards, SOUS. Set plans are entitled Initial Development Plans for Multifamily Residential, 0 Petromont Lane, Shelton, Connecticut, prepared for Good Guys Development LLC by Rose Tizo and Company LLC, architects and engineers, dated May 1st, 2020, revised May 29th, 2020. Also submitted with the application was a site engineering design report prepared by Stephen Santa Cruz, PE of Rose Tizo and Company LLC, and that was dated June 1st, 2020, and a traffic input study by KWH Enterprise LLC dated June 2020. The commission convened a duly noticed public hearing on July 19th of 2020, which continued on August 26th, 2020, and continued again and closed on September 16th, 2020. At which time there were limited comments and concerns expressed by the public, primarily about the substandard condition of Petromont Lane and its inadequacy to serve the proposal, the dangerous turning conditions at the Coram Avenue, Constitution Boulevard, Petromont Lane intersection, one-way traffic flow concerns, potential blasting, and water drainage impacts. The commissioner and staff raised several questions focused on the level of improvement necessary on Petromont Lane, the pros and cons of a one-way traffic pattern, its impact on area circulation patterns, intersection design and safety at River Road, Quorum Avenue, and at Constitution Boulevard, the proposed density and building size, the on-site vehicular circulation, that is one-way versus two, handicap parking provisions, facilities or stations for electric vehicle recharging, pet accommodations, etc., supporting outdoor facilities for tenants, potential blasting, grading and drainage issues, as well as architectural design, including the so-called office/den rooms, provisions for internal rubbish disposal, exterior materials, and finally, how the building and site design might be modified to reflect a reduced density with a set aside of 6 units that meet the state of Connecticut requirements for affordable units. The applicant attempted to address many of the comments and concerns while the public hearing was still open, submitting a variety of improvement proposals, modified site plan, and supplementary technical information on traffic, road patterns, intersection modifications, etc., for commission review and comment during the public hearing. The applicant noted that if approved with conditions, any and all other concerns of the commission, including blasting issues, can and will be addressed more fully to the satisfaction of the commission and all other responsible boards and commissions during the preparation of final site development plans. A note in that regard, this is where you need to begin to separate, because those concerns that we have really need commission involvement in how it's to be laid out and what it's to look like. We can't have that involvement today because it's an outstanding part of an outstanding application that had public hearing that needs to be addressed. Once that is addressed, then the commission can have across the table dialogue with respect to the proposals for design corrections, final locations and arrangements of parking, circulation patterns, and things of that sort. The commission has reviewed the subject initial development concept plans, including subsequent modifications provided by the applicant in response to initial concerns expressed during the extended public hearings, and is familiar with the area, existing site conditions, and area traffic patterns. It has considered how the site is proposed to be developed, the public comments that were expressed, the existing land uses and zoning of adjacent parcels, and its impact on development of the subject site, and the concerns expressed by the commission at the public hearing, as well as in its deliberations, and it notes the following findings and observations. Number one, as noted, current zoning and land uses in the area are mixed. The site is residentially zoned for small lots. It is served by all necessary utilities and characterized by a variety of topographic constraints. Being in a transitional use area, adjacent to and across from Petromont Lane, from retail and heavy commercial uses, a moderate density multifamily use with an appropriately sized, located, and well-designed building with a traditional design and residential character would be consistent both with the adjacent residential and commercial uses, as well as what's on the other side. In addition, the PDD approach gives the commission full control over the specifics of the use, as well as better controls over the design, layout, and appearance of the development proposal. If approved, the site would no longer be vulnerable to potential zone change proposals for other potentially undesirable uses and activities. As an aside, anytime you have a piece of property that's in a transitional area like that, you're vulnerable to somebody coming in and say, make my property zone like my property next door. And that could lead to some very bad things happening in there. The subject 2.12 acre site is roughly rectangular in shape and is somewhat impacted by topographic constraints. Any development of the site must be carefully designed to produce an attractive solution and an appropriate transition between these different land uses. Proposed regrading is limited to what's necessary to obtain a reasonable area for development, leaving the balance of the site west of the building in its natural condition, providing an effective buffer to the adjacent single-family home. Needed utility services are available in Petromont Lane, and all on-site utilities will be located underground. All stormwater runoff will be collected and conveyed to underground galleys for detention and cleansing prior to discharge into the existing stormwater drainage system in Petromont Lane. There are no inland wetland regulated areas on the site. However, the Inland Wetlands Commission approval of off-site discharge may be required. The approval of the Shelton Water Pollution Control Authority for the proposed discharge to the sanitary sewer system will be required. 3, after a thorough discussion of the Petromont Lane conditions and traffic flow patterns, it was the consensus of the commission that Petromont Lane must be improved to city street standards with a minimum pavement width of 24 feet or such greater width as may be determined by the city engineer. In addition, the intersection of Coram Avenue at Constitution Boulevard South must be improved with a raised island on Coram Avenue to improve safety of traffic operations. What that's trying to say is to discourage cutting across that intersection. If the city agrees to participate in the needed improvements for the city streets, the applicant should be aware that issuance of permits for construction and or occupancy will be predicated on the timely implementation of said road improvements. The details will be finalized prior to approval and sign off of final development plans. That's simply to remind the applicant, and he's aware of it, that if someone else is going to be involved in that road, the applicant is going to have to take the responsibility to see that it's done, because until it's done, the city is not likely to issue certificates of occupancy or permits for that matter. It will be the responsibility of the applicant to assure the installation of the needed improvements in a timely fashion. A traffic input study and follow-up intersection and queue analysis by KWH Enterprise LLC traffic engineers were submitted and indicate minimal traffic generation. With the street and intersection improvements that are discussed above, combined with the density reduction that's being proposed, there should be no adverse impacts on the area road system. Off-site traffic impacts on area roads will be significantly less than that from any potential rezoning for commercial development. So if you were being pressured to consider a commercial zone, the traffic impacts would be far greater than this proposal. 4, the overall density of the proposal was a concern of several commissioners who felt that a lower density would be more consistent with similar developments elsewhere in the city and allow more flexibility in site layout. Therefore, the proposed density of 56 dwelling units should be reduced to not more than 47 units. The final mix of units proposed might be 9 studio units, 23 typical 1-bedrooms, and 15 1-bedroom plus office. I say maybe because until we see final architectural designs, we don't know if those numbers are going to change. They might go up or down by 1 or 2, but the total will not exceed 47. The 47 units must include not less than 6 units allocated as affordable units in compliance with requirements set forth in the Connecticut General Statutes. I mention that because in the applicant's material that was submitted, he had indicated that they were setting aside 4, quote, workforce units, and he implied that they were going to be not subject to CGS requirements. We want to make it very clear that we want units that are going to qualify as affordable units under the state statutes. 5, the proposed building design will need to be modified to reflect the necessary reduction in the density to 47 apartment units. The building footprint should be as small as feasible to provide additional flexibility in the solution of site planning issues. Proposed building design changes should be reviewed with the commission prior to finalization on detailed plans. It is important to preserve its traditional design, the gable roof, the architectural asphalt shingles, and an exterior of masonry and horizontal siding, as illustrated on the rendering that had been provided. Further specifics concerning exterior materials and finishes, including samples, may be required as the modified detailed architectural plans are prepared and ready for submission as part of the final site development plans. The commission remains concerned about the potential use of the so-called office as an unauthorized additional sleeping room and suggests that when possible, they be redesigned as alcoves rather than separate rooms, and that they not exceed the number proposed. Additional unit design layout and floor changes are needed primarily on the first floor and will be reviewed as more detailed annotated designs are submitted for approval. In my reviewing, as an aside, in my reviewing of the materials, I think the commission might have some concerns about the elevation of the building as it faces Petromont and the amount of masonry construction, masonry siding versus the regular traditional siding. So those are things that the commission will discuss further at length with the applicant once it's off the table as a zoning approval. Number 6, the commission notes that the site plan layout needs further modification and changes. We had discussed, again, this is an aside, we had discussed two-way traffic flow rather than the one-way that they were contemplating, and the need to interconnect this so you have complete on-site circulation. And that in turn is constrained as you try to go by the front of the building. And as you'll see, I point out in here, we need to push that building back somehow. So what I've said is the commission notes that the site plan layout needs further modification and changes. Two-way circulation drives with a width of 24 feet should be provided around the entire building, with the single entry from Petromont Lane having a divided island. The proposals submitted to date are not acceptable. Additional front area space can be created by eliminating about 7 parking spaces at the left rear corner of the building, allowing the building to be moved about 20 feet towards the rear line. This additional space in the front will allow for an acceptable entry design and continuity of the two-way circulation, including across the front of the building, without impacting the proposed dog play area that they've allocated. A minor realignment of the easterly driveway may be needed. The eliminated 7 parking spaces can be offset in part by the excess spaces now available, which are about 3, and the creation of 4 additional spaces at scattered locations. It should be relatively easy to do. A minimum of 3 electric vehicle charging stations shall be provided in the green spaces in proximity to the rear of the building. We now have shown the possibility of 2 with the modification I'm suggesting. It should yield another green space in a convenient location back there for another charging station. Okay, a revised lighting plan reflecting the changes to the site plan should be provided. They did provide one, but the site plan is going to change, so it's going to have to be revised and adjusted. The commission may request alternative fixture designs that are more compatible with, I meant to say, residential building design. Design and construction details should be provided for the proposed gravity block retaining walls for commission approval, including the vinyl fencing proposed atop or adjacent to the wall. The landscape plan will require further review and revision, notes, etc. Special attention is required along the easterly property line in common with the Santos property. And an enlargement of this area may be needed to showing finished pavement grades on both sides, what's existing on Santos, what's being proposed on this site, and how the transition between is going to be affected. Some form of buffer plantings may be needed if insufficient natural vegetation is preserved. And from what I can see, it doesn't look like they're going to be too successful in having in the ability to preserve natural vegetation in that area. So that's got to be addressed, because if you're going to have apartment units, you don't want them looking at the back of a, the potentially messy back of a commercial operation. As an alternative to the proposed 6-foot-high vinyl fencing, an alternative to the proposed 6-foot-high vinyl fencing may be needed. All of these concerns must be addressed during final plan preparation and should include commission and staff involvement. Any significant development of this site is expected to involve excavation and regrading, possibly necessitating rock blasting and removal. Every effort should be made to minimize such blasting, but in any event, the applicant must adhere to all the requirements of the Fire Marshal's office, as well as the city's blasting ordinance and regulations. At minimum, all properties and structures abutting or within a distance of at least 300 feet of the proposed blast site shall have pre-blast surveys. The applicant should submit a blasting program as part of the final site development plan. Submission setting forth in detail the blasting program, the hours of operation, provisions for and extent of pre-blast surveys, blast monitoring, times of blasting, insurance coverages, etc. That might all go away if the final information demonstrates that they don't have significant rock removal. If that's the case, then that's fine. If the rock removal is limited simply to trenching for utilities and stuff, that certainly doesn't require a fancy blasting program. But we won't know that until we're provided with more information. 8, the plans were referred to the Fire Marshal, the WPCA, the Police Department, and the City Engineer for their review and comments. The City Engineer has worked with the applicant to address his major concerns or reservations with the stormwater management system. Any other outstanding concerns of staff and municipal departments must be addressed prior to commission approval and endorsement of final site development plans. The statement of uses and standards needs minor revision and modification to clarify certain language and to correlate with the final action of the commission. There's quite a bit of content in that statement of uses and standards reflecting signage, and we don't have signage on the site with the exception of an identification sign for the residential occupants. So there's no sense in having all those other provisions in there. All they do is confuse people. After completing discussion of the PDD petition and the initial development concept plans, the commission was prepared to render its decision and authorize staff to prepare a favorable resolution for their consideration and action. On the basis of the findings of concern noted above, the following resolution is offered. Resolution. Whereas the applicant has submitted a complete petition for the establishment of a 56-unit residential rental apartment building under the provisions of the Planned Development District regulations on a 2.12 acre site fronting on Petromont Lane, which site is now zoned Residence R3 District. And whereas the applicant has submitted initial development concept plans, including a traffic assessment, an opinion of potential impact, if any, on area property values, preliminary site plans, site engineering report, and preliminary architectural design plans, in order to provide the commission with the required information and details necessary to render initial development concept plan approval and adoption of planned development district. And whereas the commission held a duly noticed public hearing on July 29, 2020, continued on August 26, 2020, and continued to closed on September 16, 2020 to consider said application, during which hearing the applicants offered the possibility of reducing the maximum density to 47 units. And whereas the commission is familiar with the subject site and the applicable zoning regulations and has discussed and reviewed in detail the proposal and all accompanying documents thereto, and subject to the comments set forth above, the commission notes the following. Number 1, the application complies with the applicable zoning requirements. Number 2, necessary final approvals of inland wetlands, WPCA, city engineer will need to be confirmed, and a favorable report has been received from the fire marshal. Initial development concept plans will require further modification and revision to address the concerns and limitations that are set forth above. Specifically, the maximum allowable density will be limited to 47 units, 6 of which shall be designed and qualified as, quote, affordable units with parking for not less than 90 cars. All additional concerns identified during the ongoing review and preparation of final plans will need to be resolved prior to the submission of required final detailed development plans for commission approval. 3, the site is currently vacant and is characterized by variable topography with all necessary utilities available at the site. The proposed stormwater management plan satisfies the city ordinance, adequately addresses stormwater drainage issues, and proposes to discharge into underground galleys prior to connecting to the city system in Petromont Lane. 4, the existing site is located in a transitional location between and opposite developed commercial areas. The proposed site development and residential apartment building design will be subject to careful review and control under the provisions of a planned development district, allowing it to successfully transition from the commercial development to single-family residential development. 5, existing and proposed utility services are adequate for the proposed development. The proposed parking facilities will be adequate to serve the proposed building, and with the mandated improvements of Petromont Lane and impacted intersections, projected traffic will not overload street system in the area. 6, the submission of final detailed development plans will need to address all outstanding concerns of the commission, fire marshal, and city engineer, and all other applicable municipal boards and commissions. If significant blasting is required, a detailed program addressing all aspects of the proposed blasting must be provided. 7, the proposed PDE designation encompasses a parcel of greater than 20,000 square feet and is consistent with the comprehensive plan of zoning for the city. Excuse me. Yes, okay. I think that's supposed to say 60,000 square feet. Now, therefore, on the basis of the above, the representations made at the extensive public hearings and other discussions of the commission, the Shelton Planning and Zoning Commission hereby takes the following actions. A, in accordance with the provisions of section 34 of the Shelton zoning regulations, the subject initial development concept plan is hereby approved, subject to the following modifications, conditions, and adjustments. Number 1, final approval by the commission concerning modifications and revisions to said initial development concept plans in response to all the concerns noted above, with specific reference to required road and intersection improvements and satisfaction of all engineering concerns of the city engineer and comments and concerns of the fire marshal, as well as any and all other applicable municipal boards and commissions. 2, if significant blasting is determined to be necessary, submission of a detailed blasting program that addresses pre-blast survey criteria, including scheduling of blast, proposed monitoring, hours of operation, evidence of adequate liability insurance, and compliance with all state and city blasting ordinances. And then finally, 3, submission of a modified and revised statement of uses and standards to clarify and address outstanding concerns of staff regarding uses, applicable standards, and other concerns. 4, approval of proposed building design and details with particular attention to use of proposed exterior materials and finishes on all building elevations. 5, all utility services shall be located underground. And then if that is all done, on the basis of this conditional approval, B is on the basis of this conditional approval of initial development concept plans, subject to the stipulations and modifications set forth above, the proposed PDD then is hereby adopted for the reasons found in the discussions preceding the motion and shall be identified as PD number 101. If it is passed, it will become effective on Friday, April the 9th at 8 a.m. The reason for the additional time is to allow staff to work with the applicant to clean up the statement of uses and standards because it needs to be filed with the recorded zone change. We'd be happy to answer any other questions of the commission.
I have a comment. We had quite a discussion about hearing that the developer wanted to limit the affordable housing units to studio apartments only. And I think we all were of the mind that any type of apartment should be eligible. The way it would make sense to me is that if all the units would have a market price and an affordable price associated with them, and then as eligible people for affordable housing were to apply, they could go into any vacant apartment.
I
Is that something-
understand.
Yeah,
I'm not totally familiar with the state requirements. Alex is more of an expert on it. But my understanding is that, number one, it has to be across the board of all units. And number two, that the units need to look like every other unit. And they
Right,
really be pre-designated.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we need to clarify that or just rely on the state guidelines if that's stipulated in the resolution that they have to abide by the state rules.
That would be
So-
the most logical.
Because
way of
that's
doing
the
it.
only way I felt I could cover the commission's concerns is to tie it into the Connecticut general statute.
Correct.
Because the bottom line is, aside from being fair and equitable, we want those units to be classified as affordable so that we can gain credit in producing affordable housing.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't want to provide anything that might conflict with the state statutes by limiting or suggesting what should be done, that it can be construed as something different than the state statutes.
Because they won't be
Alex and I
counted
had
at that
a little
point.
bit of discussion even about that as to, as after the unit is completed and occupied, there needs to be some oversight that goes on to assure that the units stay being used for affordables. It needs to be monitored. And you can either the applicant can monitor, or the city can monitor, or a designated agency can monitor. We're not prepared to decide that until there's been
Right.
dialogue with the applicant and with the state
Mm.
to find out what's acceptable.
Right.
When we had our workshop with the, about affordable housing, I thought it was pretty clear that the resident had to provide to management a proof of their income for the previous year, and just to verify that they still fell within the affordable housing requirements. And then if they did not, then that would be considered a market rate unit. And if another unit vacated, then that would be.
Exactly, and that needs to be, I think the city, quite frankly, in our situation where we're anticipating generating affordable units scattered throughout the city, as opposed to 8-30G project where you have 50 or 75 units in one location. In that situation, maybe it does make sense for the applicant to do the monitoring. But when you have units all over the place, it would seem to me that a central location, like some kind of a municipal department to handle it, or assignment to the housing authority or somebody like that. Somebody needs to take that charge other than the applicant.
Well, it should be outlined in the state statute,
Mhm.
I would assume
I would think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mr. Rossetti, do you have any comments on that?
So in section 8, it does say that, the applicant can determine which types of units can be rented as affordable or not. As to who has to monitor each unit or the units that are affordable, it can really go either way as to whose responsibility that lies on. Our position is to ask the applicants to follow up on that. And I've had conversations with this applicant and he has agreed to do so.
Mhm.
So another state mandate with no resources provided.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's, I guess,
Worse.
one way to say it. There are some towns that do provide, that do have positions in their, just in their staff that do track these units. Unfortunately, I don't think that's something Shelton can provide at the current time.
Well, now to Elaine's point, though, I think there is some concern because we didn't want it limited to just small studio
Mhm.
apartments. Because if there's, say, a nurse with a child that needs a 1-bedroom, they should be able to have that under that Affordable Housing Act. And if that Affordable Housing Act doesn't allow that, it just defeats the whole purpose as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. Mr. Rossetti, maybe between now and the foreseeable future, you could get in touch with the experts up in Hartford and get their recommendation as to how this is best managed.
Could you
Could I
clarify
just
that for me?
also comment? I think if we should make clear what we think we want, what we want,
Mhm.
and if the statute says that they can just use studio apartments, and we don't think that's
Equitable.
that's not what we want to see, I think we should ask for what we want. We can only ask because we have no power other than to say we wouldn't approve this project otherwise.
Mhm.
Well,
Shouldn't we just stay with what the state mandates? I'm sure they have some sort of criteria on what they want, how many of each unit.
Josh
Well,
Josh just said they don't.
Yeah, Alex just said no.
Or
That's
Alex,
not
rather.
do it.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know why they wouldn't.
Well, details. So,
Yeah, so how best to,
We could ask the state, couldn't we?
Yeah, but we're about to pass a resolution.
Yeah, I know that, but we could still ask the state even after we passed the resolution. Because we're not going to say that so many of these and so many of those are going to be affordable housing. We're going to affordable units. We're just going to say there's a quantity of 6. Am I right?
I think a lot of consideration was given to the affordable component of this as part of the approval.
Mhm.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
So if we're limiting it to only small little tiny apartments, studio
No.
apartments,
We
I
should
think
do
that kind of defeats the purpose of us.
I'm not saying that. We're not limiting it to anything. We're just having 6 apartments, period.
Oh,
And then we
Charlie.
can ask the state, what do they mean? How many of each? So on and so forth. Wouldn't
Well,
that
the
be more
resolution
logical?
maybe should have some kind of language in it and that leads to, unless otherwise directed by state statute, all the units are to be considered available for affordable housing.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I would rather see that in the resolution.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it as because if it,
I don't think
I
that's
think we
quite
can
right,
be
Jenny.
we can be stricter, but not less strict than what the state statutes provide, right? So if we want to, we don't want to say unless provided by
Right.
state statute, because from what Alex just read, state statute does not dictate that it has to be a certain share of apartments. It can be any.
Right, but we could stipulate.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
We could be,
yeah.
we could try to be stronger.
Yeah.
All right, so
we
then
could
take
say
out the opening
like-
phrase and all the units are to be considered available for affordable housing.
Or a mix of units are to be, a mix. I would be satisfied with a mix of units.
Yeah, but it's how you're gonna,
How you gonna mix
that
it? 2 of
mix.
these, 3 of these, 4 of those, and
Yeah.
2 of that? Yeah.
figure, that's, I think, making it a little bit more difficult.
I do too, and I think, if you had I think it would be as apartments become available, whatever type, that if there's a room for one more affordable tenant and they wanted the next available, they could take the next available vacant apartment, any of the apartments, whether 1-bedroom or den or
Yeah,
studio.
and you always cap it at 6 apartments. Or will be in the affordable category. Any other
You want us
discussion
to,
about that?
you want us to put something in your decision on the initial development plans about that?
Yes, I think that, I don't
Right.
think there's anybody that's against it.
You're gonna have to.
Yeah.
I'll put some words together and I'll run it by Alex, and he can run it by one or more of you, but we can put something to the effect that the proposed affordable housing units shall be available across all unit types.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. All right, couple of the things that came up for me as going through this resolution is on the bottom, I believe it's on page 3, number 1, it does say that the site would no longer be vulnerable to zone change proposals for other potentially undesirable commercial uses and
If you put
activities.
if you put it together and a proposal goes on it, it's no longer vacant land. If it sits there as vacant land and they're unsuccessful in getting this type of a transitional residential use, you can have somebody march in and say, hey, I've got commercial development across the street, Petromont Lane. I'm not going to build houses to look at that. I want to build commercial development on this piece.
Mhm.
And ask for that change to be extended, or to change from River Road to be extended back to include this piece. That's part of the vulnerability that goes along with any type of vacant land that's in a transitional position. It could go either way. And the transition is best affected with a development that can relate to both sides,
Mhm.
such as this one.
Yeah.
By design and occupancy, it relates to the residential, but it also can deal with the commercial impact.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't, this is a positive for sure. Let's see. And staff would be tracking the approval that's needed from the WPCA for the proposed discharge to the sanitary sewer system. That would need to come in before the
Yep.
final detailed development.
We have information from them saying that they have the sewer capacity, but that an application is required.
Right.
And that's what we're hanging our hat on. That's essentially saying we can provide the sewer service, you've just got to make an application.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Okay, another point is the traditional design that you mentioned in number 5, to fit in with the neighborhood. And I definitely agree with redesigning the ones that have the so-called, as you put it, the so-called office, to make sure that they're not a separate room, and that they don't exceed the number proposed. I do think that your idea to have additional front space by eliminating the 7 parking spaces at the rear and pushing the building back would be a benefit. Staff definitely would have to track the revised lighting design. I think this would be the first proposal in town that would specifically have vehicle charging spaces. So we're breaking ground there. And then point number 7 talked about rock blasting and removal. I definitely would want to see some kind of communication and a blasting plan be implemented. We have to be very sensitive to the neighbors in that area, and some of the buildings in that area, the residential buildings are a little old. So I would be concerned about their foundations and walls cracking. So I think that's about it for everything that I marked.
Chairwoman.
Go right
Commissioner
ahead.
Tippy.
Go ahead, Commissioner Dickey.
Tony, a question for you. I'm on, I can't tell what page, I'm on page 6. Tony, when you were reading about the vegetation and the landscaping, the wording says that some form of buffer plantings may be needed if insufficient natural vegetation is preserved, and possibly an alternate to the 6-foot high fence. But as you were reading that, you kind of gave an aside that it was unlikely that they'd be able to preserve any of the vegetation there. So do you think that's strong enough wording? And is that something we take up in the final design, or do you think that?
Yes, I think we have the capability of demanding, if you will, some stronger buffer planting in there. I think if they were intending to rely on the existing vegetation, when all is said and done, there isn't that much space for it to survive. So, but I need to have it drawn up at a larger scale so we can see just what we are dealing with.
Okay. Tony, I know that you had mentioned about there being some screening because you wouldn't want the residents to be looking at the back of a commercial building, but it is
what it is.
responsibility of that, a commercial
All
building to
we
make
can do is
sure their property is always
affect
maintained.
a more attractive transition, if you will.
Mhm.
Not just pavement, retaining wall, fence on top of the retaining wall, and then the other guy's retaining wall and nothing else.
Yeah. Well, my point.
If that were going to be the case, if there's no ability to do anything else, then maybe we ought to consider a different type of fence rather than a vinyl coated chain link.
Okay.
You know?
My point is that the present commercial occupant does have a responsibility to maintain the back of his property and not have that look like a trash dump.
Yes.
You know, it shouldn't be just on the back of the applicant to provide something.
Fortunately, the ground level, the ground pavement level back there is probably 8 to 10 feet below the property line. So that's usually the messiest part of a commercial operation. It's what's happening down on ground level. Other than that, it's going to be looking at the rooftops.
Okay. So any other comments, questions, or concerns from the commission?
Before we leave that affordable housing, I suspect what I'm going to do is under the, on page 9, somewhere in that list of conditions and adjustments, I'll put in a couple of sentences about the affordable housing aspect being available across units.
Okay. So at this time, we would not be able to take a vote on this particular resolution.
As long as you trust Alex and I to figure out the wording, I can run the wording by you after it's done. Or we can work out some wording right now.
I would highly discourage the commission from including that language. I've read section 8. It doesn't allow for that to be, written in. If you want to have something a little more loose as to, to see if there's the potential for that, absolutely happy to do that. But I think for the commission to demand that there be a division of the housing stock, I don't think that's quite right. And I understand your point. I think it's a valid point, but I'm not sure if it's in there, and I would caution the commission from taking
No, it's the opposite.
Yeah, we're not dividing up the stock. We're just saying as any apartment becomes available, it could be an affordable unit.
Yeah, all units are to be considered to be an affordable house unit on an as-needed basis.
Correct. Which, however, I believe the applicant has the right to say, to restrict, what units he wants to rent as studios or 1 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms under the affordable guidelines and laws.
That just seems counterproductive to what they're trying to accomplish.
I would agree with what you're saying, but there's nothing that I've read that would indicate otherwise.
Well, then I think then we should table taking any action on this until Corporation Council clarifies it and gets back to us with an absolute ruling.
Yeah, I would think we could stipulate a higher requirement than what that.
I thought when we were having it we were having a discussion on another complex and they were going to just use the basement. And it was said that, no, they can't do that. They
Yeah.
can't designate an apartment,
Mhm.
like a basement apartment, to be the affordable component. We were
Mhm.
told that. So that's a little contradicting to what's being said now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that might, I know that's the one up on Leavenworth Road, Mr. Blakeman's second building. Didn't he indicate it wasn't necessarily affordable, but they were gonna be lower rates?
What if we say something to the effect that the affordable housing, the proposed affordable housing units shall not be confined to studio units, but shall be available across all available units. And then
That's
let's work out the
That's what I
details
think,
of
but
it further
Alex
down.
is not sure we can do that.
That's Tony, what you just said is what I'm not sure the commission can do. I don't, so
What you say,
the
you know,
commission
they-
can,
They may not be able to do it in terms of the Connecticut general statutes. But as a condition of a local action on a zoning, saying, we will not approve the zoning unless you are going to distribute these units.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
That
then
doesn't make them necessarily subject to the state.
okay,
I
now
think they could be
I
more
understand.
restrictive if they feel that's important to implement a zone change.
Okay, yes, I understand now. I thought initially you were relying on the general statutes to enforce the,
No,
to
in fact, I
enforce
think
the
if
issue
you want
of
to avoid that confusion, we could say, notwithstanding the provisions of the Connecticut general statutes, the commission wishes to have affordable units available in all styles of apartments.
Okay. Okay. That's, then I understand clearly now. My mistake for being confused. If that's the action the commission would like to take, then yeah, absolutely. I don't see an issue with that.
You're good?
It's a confusing issue.
it is. It's tough. But we do have some leverage. We don't have to approve this zone change. You know, we can.
Right, exactly.
stipulate
It's a
what we
zone
want.
change. It's not just an as-right
Right.
project.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Madam Chairwoman,
Go right ahead, Mr. Lascos.
I think kudos should be given to the developers for offering up more than the 10%. And I think the resolution, even though it may be a little opaque, that it did list out that it's meeting the Connecticut general statutes. And without us detailing out that it has to be a certain mix. So in my mind, you could take action on the resolution.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we do it in an appropriate manner and not get caught in the long run. So I was just looking for my affordable housing.
Well, we could certainly trust the goal and the mission of the current developers who are developing this property. You know, it's, if it ever gets sold and new owners take it on, it's better that it's in the document.
Mm-hmm. That's right. So is the language that Mr. Panico suggested appropriate?
I'm comfortable with it.
Yeah, essentially, I would say, notwithstanding the Connecticut general statutes to the contrary, the commission wishes that all affordable housing units be available proportionately across all unit types.
Not proportionally. It would be whoever comes first. I mean, if 6 people come and there's 6 vacant
I can
studio
take-
apartments,
Put it that way, on
Then they-
first come basis.
the way it makes sense to me is that all units would have 2 prices, an affordable unit, affordable price and a market price. And as apartments become available, any would be available as affordable if that's who comes along for a vacant unit. I don't even know, as I'm thinking about this, what happens if the places, I don't think you have to keep units empty if you don't have affordable,
No.
No.
right?
I would assume not.
Yeah, yeah.
No, but you do have to have a waiting list for
Right.
affordable units. So if there's a
Okay.
waiting list, when a vacancy comes up, then I believe
Yeah.
there's a waiting list. I could be wrong, but
You are
That
correct.
sounds about right, yeah.
Mm.
so they would get the next available apartment that comes up.
Well, I was gonna suggest that I try and reach Attorney Titoso right now.
Hmm.
And so can we take a recess? And let me see if I can quickly get him on the phone.